was hope. And I go back to think about my mother passed away before I started using drugs heavily. And I would think about what she wanted us to be, what she wanted us to do. What did she want? Because she was 47 when she passed away. And so that was young. That was young to have 5 children. And I would think about what would make her happy. And I'm capable of doing it. So I need to do it. What would make me happy? I need to do it. I want to live. You have to want to live. You don't have to be rich. You have to want to live. And knowing that you have the potential to do better. All of us have the potential. It's no excuse to move forward. Move forward. Even one step is not doing something that you usually do that is destructive. Stop the destructive behavior. Have faith in yourself. I mean, if you don't want to believe anything, you want to worship whoever, whatever, believe in yourself that you can do better. It takes time. Sometimes, I believe in miracles no matter what, but it takes time. And you're never too old, because I was almost 30 when I started the different path, the other journey. So there's never too late. It's never too late.
Everyone, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. I have an amazing guest with me today. Super excited. Sharon is with me. We're going to be talking about her story, which is inspiration times a million, and where she's come from and where she's landed in life. This is like a movie to me, and I'm so excited to have Sharon Rand on the podcast. Sharon, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to meet you and to share some of our story. And it's exciting that we connected in a way that no one could imagine from miles away. So I'm excited about being part.
Yep. When I get people on my screen and on the microphone, we always like to have like a pre-chat, and we talk about life and talk about the podcast. And I like to do that because then we're meeting each other and getting to know each other before we record. And in our conversation, we realized that in some way, somehow our paths kind of crossed many, many years ago through connections. And that's quite unique to me, that this is how things happen. There's a purpose to everything, Sharon, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe that. I believe that there's a purpose, and there's this supernatural power that connects us. It connects the dots in ways that we couldn't do it ourselves. And it lets us know that it's real. It's real, because we had no idea that Bushwick and Brooklyn, New York would be our connection.
Right.
And how we met was different. Most people meet, on the street, on the subway, through other businesses, but it was just, all of it is just fantastic. And I'm grateful that I get to share some things with you, to let you know that what you did years ago paid off. It paid off.
It's amazing.
It paid off.
It's amazing. So we have a mutual connection through Metro Assembly, and been there many, many times, helping down there and coming down with teams to do stuff to help in the community. And they had like a ton of buses that would go out in the community and reach out to kids and give them hope and bring them like back to school supplies every year. And they would have events, and they just reached out in the community in so many ways. And, I was a small part of that and loved every minute of it. And I got to go into people's homes and talk to families. And I met some of the most courageous people living in probably some of the toughest situations back then. It was a very different time back then as well. And it was rough, but it was like flowers that kind of find a way to grow in pavement and hard surfaces. There's just a way that it springs life, comes out of places you wouldn't expect. Right. And again, I met some of the best people in the world. And my heart lives there. And so
Good.
to know that your family's from there as well, and that's just shocking to me that we have this connection, mutual connection with Bushwick. So,
Yes.
anyways, I'm so proud to have you here.
Yes, it makes me think of something I read a while ago about a pot that had a crack in it.
Hmm.
And one person had a pot that she carried her water in, and she watered her flowers and they grew and grew. And the other person had a pot with a crack in it and she could never get her flowers to grow. But on her way back to get a pot one day, she seen flowers growing along the road. And what happened was her water that was leaking out of her pot was
Come on.
actually watering flowers on the way. So that I can't remember where I heard that story. So you watered some flowers on the way.
Oh,
And
come
so
on.
I'm just here to tell my story about where it all happened for me in Brooklyn. Yeah.
That is the story of my week right now. My story of my month. Now I'm going to be telling everyone what you just shared with me. That is
Oh yeah.
beautiful picture. I love
Yeah.
it.
And
Your
that's
story
mhm.
is amazing. Like I said, it's like a movie because where you've come from and where you are today, those two worlds don't seem to cross over as much
No,
as we think, right? So can you
no, they
take us
don't.
back a little
They
bit
don't.
and
They
share a little bit
don't.
about your story?
Okay, yes, I will. Yes, I will. Again, I'm Sharon, originally from Brooklyn, New York, now living in Jackson, Mississippi. And some of the places and things that I've done in New York City would have never gotten me here in my own speed. And so I grew up in Brooklyn, went to school, high school, went to college there. But in between all that, I got hooked on drugs. I was a drug addict for almost 15 years. And during that time, so many things happened. I moved from borough to borough. Just imagine what it entails to be a drug addict and survive in New York City. And I would work part time and I had my own apartment, but it was real scanty and sparse. It was just enough so I wouldn't be living on the streets. And so my addiction grew from starting out young at 12 years old. There was parties all the time in Brooklyn, parties at my house, parties on the corner, parties. And everything was about getting high and partying. And that's what I did and until one day it had gotten out of hand. I got married and got into a big fight with my first husband, and I was actually shipped to Mississippi. It was like you either go to jail or you leave New York City. And so all those things that happened then, I would never imagine being living in Mississippi now. And
Hmm.
that spanned over 15 years of drug addiction and leaving New York City. And when I got off the plane in Mississippi and I saw my father's face, the look in his face was like, who drugged this cat in off the road? Or did the road, where did this cat come from? I could remember how I looked. My face was scratched up from fighting. Um, I was sick. I had pneumonia and didn't know it. And I don't remember too much of the first 2 weeks that I came to Mississippi because I was coming off this high that I have been doing since I was 15. And so it was a shock to my system. But I managed to get settled. I didn't plan on staying in Mississippi. It was like a vacation that never ended. But
Hmm.
over the course of months, my dad was a Baptist preacher. So I had no choice but to go to church, dress up, look nice, and I was 28 years old, but I was treated like I was 15. So I had to actually start over in Mississippi. And so during that time, I tried to find the drugs wherever they were, but it just wasn't the same. So it was like, it wasn't good for me. And I prayed a lot and I asked God a lot to show me what what is my purpose? Why am I here? What was I doing with it? And my mom passed during that time. So I was lonely. I was alone. And years later, the therapist would tell me, you were trying to go where your mother is. She was deceased. So they said all the drugs I did, I was trying to kill myself, and it slowly, but it didn't happen. It wasn't predestined for me to die as a drug addict in New York City. So after a year of being here, I met my husband. I was actually at a rehab at a Christmas party, and they had the men separated from the women. And I watched this guy slowly make his way around the party, trying to, I don't know what he was trying to do, but I eventually sat next to me, and we conversated. I still had another month to go in rehab. So we conversated over the phone. And when I got out, he would take me to meetings, he would take me to work. And I never went back to my apartment to live. I stayed with my dad because I felt like I couldn't stay sober if I moved back into the apartment that I had here in Mississippi. And my husband, he got to know my father. I think he fell in love with my father before he fell in love with me. They
Okay.
would hang out, they would do stuff, and
Yeah.
it did. So when I lost my dad, it was like he was losing a father too.
Mm.
We got married, and I told him that, I had problems, and he said, well, I have problems too. I said, I probably can't have children because of all the drugs I use. The doctors told me I would never have kids. But after 4 years, we had a child. We had
Wow.
two.
Wow.
We had two. And in that first 4 years, he became a preacher. Now, me coming from New York City, ex drug addict, and all these other issues, I didn't think I was worthy of being a preacher's wife.
Wow.
I just learned how to be a wife. I just learned how to be a mother. And now a preacher's wife? I rebelled, I rebelled, I rebelled. And
Wow.
all during that time, I would write down the conversations that I would have with God because I didn't want to do it. I said, Lord, I do not want to be a preacher's wife. Make this man divorce me.
Hmm.
But 32 years later, we're still together. And I wrote down all those conversations with God. And one day I met a lady who said she could teach me how to self publish. And I self published all of those writings in my book. And my book is called God Whispers to the Preacher's Wife. And all those conversations, well, most of them, the book would have been too big if I would have wrote all of them. I wrote down the ones that really stuck out. And now married 32 years, clean and sober 32 years,
Wow.
two sons. I have a stepson and two grandchildren. And I have a career. I, I was able to attain 2 degrees, a bachelor's and master's, and working on a doctorate. Now, that's almost impossible for someone who's been on drugs for 15 years. It's like I was embalmed
Hmm.
or preserved. Something, God had something for me that I didn't know about. And I'm just realizing the purpose that He has for me now. And I want to continue to write about it. I want to continue to talk about it. And I want to continue to let women know that your past does not have to determine your future. You can make a difference within yourself and others by sharing your pain, sharing your story. At first, I wouldn't talk about it. I was ashamed. I wouldn't talk about it. But now I know that talking about it helps others. And so now I feel good about my story. I feel good about sharing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sharon, talk a little bit to the person listening who struggles with feeling worthy. They maybe they feel like they've gone too far. There's no hope. That they've made too many mistakes in life, and they just don't feel like there's any real hope out there for them. People battling with feeling worthy. What would you say to them listening right now?
I would tell them never give up on yourself. Each day that you wake up is an opportunity to try again, to take another step forward. Take another step, one day at a time, one step at a time, and shut out the naysayers, because a lot of times people around you and things around you will tell you you can't do it. So you have to stop listening to what the naysayers, the enemy, the people who are against you, stop listening to them and start giving yourself affirmations. Yes, I messed up. Yes, I did this wrong, but I need another chance. Give me another chance. And I believe in God, and I share that often. I ask for God to take the taste of these drugs out of my mouth, and I'll never do them again. And that worked for me. When we say he's a right now God, he's an on time God, he is. But some people, their beliefs won't let them let go. But you are worthy. If you're still breathing, you're worthy of something. Somebody out there loves you, somebody cares about you, somebody wants to see you succeed. First, you got to want it. You got to want it real bad, and change your surroundings. It's hard. Like if you live in the projects or live in a home or a place where you can't turn to anyone else, that's difficult. But seek help. You can't do it alone. You can't, it's hard to just walk away from your family to get your life together. It's hard to walk away from a job, but don't count yourself out. Give yourself an opportunity. It wasn't easy for me, but I was determined to live because I did not want a funeral to happen and someone whispering she died from an overdose. That was what motivated me. I wouldn't want my family to to have to go through that. We are going to leave here, but we struggle with hurting ourselves. Stop hurting yourself. You're worthy. Think of yourself as perfectly perfectly orchestrated. You were put together by hands that can touch everything, everybody, and everyone. And I believe that because I wanted to give up when my mother died. She was my best friend, and I didn't want to live. I didn't want to be around anyone. She was my best friend. And when she left, I lost a child before she left. My first child died on my birthday. So that's when my addiction started. And 2 years later, my mother died. So I was mad at God. I was like, what did I do to deserve this? Nobody cares about me. Nobody loves me. I lost my child. I lost my mother. I'm just going to give up. But one day, just knowing that my family would have to bury me, I stopped. But I didn't do it by myself. My boss, actually, her name is Elizabeth. When I told her my problem, she actually took my last check and paid for rehab for me and kept my apartment until I got it. But everyone is worthy. Don't compare yourself with others. Just compare yourself to what God sees. And he sees us all as a marvelous work. Everything God touches was good. You're good. You're good.
So when you're in that in between stage between your life in New York and your life now in Mississippi, and you're leaving one way of how you were living and you're stepping into something totally different. In that in between stage, was there loneliness for you? Were you like you didn't fit in with the old life you had and you didn't fit in with the new life? You're kind of in the middle between the two. For you personally, did you struggle a little bit in that in between stage?
I was scared. I was terrified. I was terrified. Once the high faded out and I realized that I was in a place that the lights went off at 10 p.m., I was like, so what do y'all do? Nothing. And I didn't know anyone. My father didn't raise me, so I just getting to know him. And it was scary because I didn't have any money. I couldn't run. I couldn't hide. I had to just stay still. And what I focused on is what my mother taught me about being around other people and showing them the best of you. There's something good in you. But I had to realize I had to make these people happy so they won't send me back to New York. And I didn't want New York to come get me. because I knew I was going to die. What the road I was on had gotten so bad where I had to be shipped away instead of go to prison. I didn't want to go back to that because I know it was a dead end. But here, all new people, they're looking at me crazy. They go to church 3 times a week, and I would just sit there. I felt like I was rejected and just like a I don't know. I felt like people were pointing their fingers at me all the time.
Yeah.
That's her. That's her. That's her. And if I were to go back, they were going to say the same thing. That's that girl. That's her. That's that woman.
Yeah.
So it was a dead space. It was lonely. It was lonely. So I just did the best I could to make my father and his wife and kids happy. I would do whatever they asked me to do, and I did it the way my mother raised me, how to cook and clean. And I was 28 years old. So I wasn't a child, but my lifestyle was just blank. I didn't have any skills. I did get a job when I came here. I was a part-time secretary at one of the office buildings, but I knew that from high school. It wasn't hard for me to get a job. Yeah, I had some sense didn't get fried in the mix. So I used what I thought was the best part of me and to keep everybody here happy until I learned how to just be happy about being me.
And then when we talk about you now later on as a pastor's wife, there's this perception that church people are perfect. They got everything figured out. They walk on water. They never make mistakes. They've never had a hard life. Everything's been simple and they're perfect. Like they never make mistakes. And here you are walking into the church. You are here to now use, because I grew up in a home where my dad was a minister, and there's a perception that the family needs to be an example within the building, within the church, right? So our kids live this way under the pastor's families. This is how they live. So we want to model that for the people coming to church. This is how you should live based on what we see in our in our pastor's life. So you're now gone from being not just in the back row of church, kind of scooting in, scooting out. You're front row. You're in there serving alongside of your husband and helping other people. Does that give you a different perspective when you reach out to help people than that perception that everyone in church is perfect?
In the beginning, I was taught to wear the big hat, the purse, or the matching outfit, looking all pristine and all that. But I began like in 2000, it began to bother me. It's like, from studying and learning and reading the Bible, which I never did before, I realized that God did not tell me that the hat and the clothes and being perfect was going to get me in heaven. And so I started to dress comfortably, respectfully, and I made sure my children were that way. And I never put on a persona that you can't talk to me. I wanted to be able for the young women in the church to walk up to me without feeling like they're going to break me or feeling like I'm going to talk down to them. Because what I learned and watched my father and his wife, they were expected to be the perfect family until both of my sisters got pregnant at the age of 15. That tore the family up because they were sitting on that pedestal and then they got knocked down. And so now I'm respected as being Minister Sharon Rand, not just the pastor's wife or the first lady. And my children, since they moved out, they're not perfect. They have their ways. And when people call me or say something about their social media, and I remind them about their children and the way they're raising theirs, they have an opportunity to come back into the church and live a better life because they were taught. But I did not want to bring them up to be afraid of church or hate church.
Mhm.
So I taught Sunday school when they were little. And as they became teenagers, I taught the teenage class. So they know the word of God. They know the right thing to do. But I never wanted to be that perfect person where you can't talk to me. I tell them some of my story. I don't tell them too much. I don't want them to fear me, as in, yeah, she's just gonna go off on us. She's from New York. She got that New York mentality. She's just mean regardless.
Mm.
So I let them know that I am my own person, that I respect my husband, I respect the church, I respect my pastor. But they already know I'm not the glass figurine.
Mhm.
I've cleaned toilets in the church. I scrub, I wash, I cook, I do all that. I don't sit back and just be the pretty pastor's wife, the pretty preacher.
Mhm.
Don't do that. And I make sure that the other women and the children will walk up to me and hug me and say hello, or not just look at me from a distance and just go, I wonder what she's thinking. Because some preachers' wife they struggle.
Yeah.
They're in abusive relationships. Church hurt is real.
Yeah.
Church hurt is real. And so they put on this false face that everything's okay. And that's the women I like talking to because they're hurting. They're hurting. They can still remain a pastor's wife, but they have to remember their own identity. They have an identity of their own.
Right. Exactly.
And we don't give the preacher's wife enough space to be herself. She's a child of God. She's respectable, but let her breathe a little bit. Yeah. So it was difficult in the beginning because I was imitating my father's wife.
Right.
But then when the new millennium came in, they called me the new millennium preacher wife because I got rid of those. I got two hats. I have two hats left. I keep them as a reminder, the whole outfit, but the rest of it I gave away. And there's a lot of women who feel like they have to put on a parade show, and that's not Christian like. That's haughty, and I
Mm.
don't want to be haughty. I don't want to have
Yeah.
a haughty spirit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we have people listening, Sharon, that don't have a faith background. They don't
Mhm.
really understand the church. Maybe they have their reasons. I'm not sure. But the one thing you can't argue with is someone's testimony, someone's story, because you are a living example of how you were headed down one path and now you're
Mhm.
on a totally different path. And that reason for that change was not education, wasn't that you read a great book and it changed your life. It was, there's a relationship there, there's a change of heart that's happened for you. And that can't be argued with no matter what your faith background is.
Nope.
You see the results. I see you on camera right here with me. You
Mhm.
wouldn't have been here had you
Nope.
not experienced this in your life.
Mhm.
So that hope, even though there was loneliness, there was hope, right, for you?
Mhm. There was hope. And I go back to think about my mother passed away before I started using drugs heavily. And I would think about what she wanted us to be, what she wanted us to do. What did she want? Because she was 47 when she passed away. And
Wow.
so that was young. That
Yeah.
was young to have five children. And I would think about what would make her happy. And I'm capable of doing it. So I need to do it. What would make me happy? I need to do it. I want to live. You have to want to live. You don't have to be rich. You have to want to live. And knowing that you have the potential to do better. All of us have the potential. It's no excuse to move forward. Move forward. Even one step is not doing something that you usually do that is destructive. Stop the destructive behavior. Have faith in yourself. I
Mhm.
mean, if you don't want to believe anything, you want to worship whoever, whatever, believe in yourself that you can do better.
Yeah.
It takes time. Sometimes, I believe in miracles no matter what, but it takes time. And you're never too old, because I was almost 30 when I started the different path, the other journey.
Mhm.
So there's never too late. It's never too late.
Amazing.
There.
So tell me more about the book and who it's for. Who did you
Okay.
have in your mind as you were putting
Oh,
this together?
the book. This is the book.
Right there. Gorgeous cover, by the way.
Yeah. I like that the clouds, when I came to Mississippi, the clouds were amazing. In New York, you don't see clouds like that. You see
Really?
gray, dull, gray, concrete,
Mm-hmm.
fake trees and all that. So the clouds excited me. And so that's how I came up with the cover. I told my son, I want clouds. And my son actually did the cover.
Wow,
He
it's
did the cover.
gorgeous. It's
He
really
did the,
nice.
and it was I had to have the clouds and God whispering to me through the clouds. The book, it the title probably pushes more people away because it says the preacher's wife. And I want readers to understand it could be God whispers to the woman, the
Mm.
wife, the lady, the leading lady. It didn't have to say preachers. Any woman in a leadership position or wanting to grow, this book would help them. They do
Okay.
not have to be a preacher's wife. It's for women that struggle with rejection, loneliness, um, losing hope, losing faith, um, feeling like they're not raising their family correctly, feeling like they're not a good wife to their husband. Um, yes, and feeling like they can't move forward. There is a section in the book where I talk about Deborah and Barak, where Deborah was the leader, but Barak was the commander, but she was the one who encouraged him to go forward in the story in the Bible, in the book of Judges. And that particular story is for women who are capable of doing more, but there's something in the way that keeps them from being recognized that they did it. And so I want women to just step up and put themselves out there and show people what they have to offer. And
Right.
that this book can be for any woman. But I chose the preacher's wife because it was me not wanting to be the preacher's wife and asking God all these random questions like, why did the church lady say I didn't know how to cook? Because I didn't know how to cook a hot dog. I didn't know how to cook a hot dog because we didn't eat hot dogs.
Yeah.
But they were so mean. Church ladies were mean. Me. They oh wow, I had experiences with those church ladies and I wrote about it in the book. I didn't name anyone, I just named situations, and I found scripture that related to those things.
Mm.
Like what you mentioned earlier about that in-between place. Remember when Joseph's brothers threw him in the well?
Yeah, exactly.
He was in an in-between place. I
Yeah.
was the favorite. My dad loved me. Now I'm being sold, but now I'm rich and I have the power to feed you. And so I want women to know that your cisterine place, your well, that dark, deep place where you might have to go for a little while, you won't be there forever. God is preparing you for something bigger. So there's a lot of inspiration and encouragement in the book, not just for preachers' wives. Yep.
Having the book now out in the world and in people's homes and in their hands, what does that mean for you? How does that encourage you to know that this book is out there?
Oh, it lets me know that I have found a way to reach the people who I should have reached a long time ago. It lets me know that there's a young woman somewhere that's going to read this and it's going to give her hope. It lets me know that someone might read the ebook in another country and it would give them hope. Not just young women, older women who have gone through different situations as being a preacher's wife can read this and realize they were not the only one that it went through. So I donated some books to a conference that happened 2 weeks ago. And the person who had the conference told me that people were opening the book, reading it during the conference. She had to stop them. Wait a minute, y'all have to wait until we're focused, pay attention. She said she could see the book being open because she gave the speakers a happy bag, and one of my books was in it. And so that made me feel good that some of these ladies, and they weren't preachers' wives.
Yeah.
None of them on the stage were preachers' wives. A lot of people want to know what the preacher's wife is thinking, but she just won't tell them. Of the negative part, it was some good, because I think becoming a preacher's wife possibly saved my life. Because what if I would have met another guy and got entangled with someone else that would revert to old behavior, or still out in the world getting drunk and high? So being married to Eric and him becoming a preacher's wife, a preacher himself, saved my life, because I wanted to engage in what he was doing. I have the degrees, I have two of them are for Christian education. I wanted to learn more to support him, not for me, but to support him. So I believe that that transition saved my life. It saved my life.
Wow. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. So Sharon, where do we go from here? What's next for you now that the book's out? What are your plans? How are you going to continue to grow your message and help more people? What's in your heart? What are you thinking?
What's in my heart now is to continue with writing, do a devotional, and I also want to do a book about my addiction and coming through that. I have titled it already. Is drug dealer to disciple.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like the transition from selling or doing drugs on the street, and the energy that I used there, now I use that same energy as a disciple. So I was going to use my first name and tell the story from another vantage point. Like, I'm going to talk about it, but it's not going to be me. It's going to be another person.
Okay.
Matter of fact, it's going to be two guys that meet in the book. And one is a drug addict and one is a minister. So, and that I'm going to do devotionals, and I'm working on starting a podcast where women can come in, and listen, because a lot of preachers' wives are silent. So I want to unsilence them, or have a place where they can listen to some real talk, and possibly become interviewed on the podcast. So I'm just getting started. Well, I just figured out how to do an episode. So I do have a podcast. It's The Pulpit Wife. And what I did, I read one of the modules of my course. I do have a course I created called Becoming the Preacher's Wife. And I took some of the content from the book and turned it into lessons of hope, lessons of hope, things that you look for, and things that you might experience, and things that you should do, scripture to match it, and or some of it is just real talk, because I was not always a Bible person, a reader. So some of it's just real talk. Before I even start, I'll let them know that the Bible is important to me, but having you understand your position as a preacher's wife means more than what you can quote from the Bible.
Right.
Because I can't quote scripture.
Yeah.
I could just tell you stories that I've read, and I can tell you where to find them.
And your story is also just as impactful and just as important, because it's something you've lived and you know it inside and out. So that's powerful.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Thank
Sharon,
you.
thank you for being part of my podcast. Again, I was so thrilled that we have this connection in our past and to New York and even specifically down to like your neighborhood. That's
Yes.
I
Door to door.
shocked. I'm shocked when we had that conversation, that door opened. So it's great to connect with you. It's great to be able
Yes.
to be part of sharing your message with the world. And there's a new podcast that everyone needs to come out and check out is yours. So we want people to
Yes.
go over and check that out. So let everybody know, Sharon, how do we connect with you? Where are you most active? Because I'm sure there's going to be people with questions that want to reach out to you and talk to you and be in your world. Where do we go? How do we connect after this conversation?
Okay. I'm very active on social media and Instagram.
Okay.
And the name is Pulpit Wife
Okay.
on both Instagram and Facebook. Um, I have a website, pulpitwife.com.
Nice.
And on that website, you can order the books. There's some little merchandise like cups and things like that. And the two other books that I'm a part of, an anthology, they're on there as well. And links to my courses and my coaching. And I have a free 15-minute coaching just to see if we fit or we can have conversation. So let's see. I'm just starting my podcast and it's on Spotify, and that's also Pulpit Wife. So I did 2 episodes, I think, and I talked about my book on there. So, but I'm most active on social media, Instagram and Facebook. I have a Twitter account, but I'm not there that much.
Okay.
And I have an email. It's pulpitwife@gmail.com.
Okay. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing. So we're going to have all that information in the show notes for everyone. And excited to hear about your podcast. That's a great thing. I love podcasting. I have 7. So
I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be reaching out to you. I sent your link to my sister because she wants to do it as well.
Good.
And so we'll talk because I kind of started on my own and I need pointers and other things that will help me reach the audience that I want to reach.
Yeah.
I don't want to be all over the map. I want to stick to Christian women in leadership positions in the church.
Yeah. It's a great focus for you and a great opportunity to reach many people and help them. So yeah, if I can be of any assistance in the future, I would love to help you any way I can. And again, I just want to thank you for being here and being a part of our podcast, our little family we got going on here, living the next chapter. And I'm inviting everyone to go buy the book and gift the book as well. Buy 2 copies, one for yourself and one for someone else, and leave a review as well.
Yes.
That's very helpful to all of our authors. Please do that. It means a lot. And put something in there more than great book or be specific. Say what you love about the book, because that helps the next person who comes along to find this great book and realize that this is going to help them in their life. And Sharon, again, I'm so thankful that you're here. And thank you for making time to share your story with us. It's beautiful.
No, I loved it. The book is on Amazon as well. So they can get it there, Amazon.com. Yeah. And I didn't mention this, but before I married the preacher, I did sponsor women coming out of rehab. So I do have experience with that as well. I would do, they call it a 5th step. And I would be called into the centers to sit down and listen to the women give their 5th step. So I do have experience with that as well. So I count my blessings and I don't discount small beginnings. So if I can help in that realm, I do that as well.
Beautiful. There you go. So there's so many gifts that Sharon has to share with everyone. And again, it's just, I'm so happy that we can be here, shine the light on you and your story, because I know you've helped many and you'll continue to help many more. So thanks, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate you being here and being part of our podcast community. LivingTheNextChapter.com is our website. I have an offer for you as an author, if you're listening, and you're wanting to build your website for your book. I've had so many authors come on and they're struggling in this area. I'd love to help you. All of the websites that I built for my different podcasts, I have experience and I'd love to help you and get you up and running. I can help you with your domain purchase. I can help you with setting up your podcast, making it really simple. And if you love Canva, we can even set it up on Canva for you, and you can do all your own maintenance. You don't need to hire anybody. We'll help you get set up. So if that interests you as an author and you want a website for your book, let me know. We can do this. I can help you. LivingTheNextChapter.com is the website for the podcast. You can find me there. I'd love to help you. Reach out. Let me know if I can be of assistance in any way. And thank you again for listening to Living the Next Chapter. Today is where your book begins. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.